You know that saying, too many cooks in the kitchen? Well, I am too many cooks in the kitchen. I am too many cooks in my own kitchen. I have so many things going on right now. I can't wrap my brain around it. I keep dropping stuff. I'm breaking things. I'm like, my whole body is just like, ah. So I need to center because today is spicy pepper day. I have two. So these are my own, not a very big, offering. These are from the farmer's market. A very big offering because I could buy as many as I wanted, and I did. I didn't have a great pepper year. It probably was the water. It was probably a rain issue. I don't know. But I feel like peppers are a little tricky and I need to really figure them out. Like if there is something that the soil really needs, I want to figure it out now so I can start working on that soil and then devote that row to peppers. Processing spicy pepper day means gloves. First time that I ever processed my spicy peppers, I did not wear gloves. I was like, I don't need to wear gloves. I've never worn gloves when I cut a pepper. Well, my hands felt like they were on fire for days. It was days. I was in so much pain that when I put the peppers into the freezer, I've never touched them. They're 2 years old. I've never touched these peppers. I labeled them stupid hot peppers and I've never eaten them because I couldn't, like I was in so much pain. I'm sure I could like throw them into the Singapore hot chili sauce and everything would be fine, but I can't. I had to like break up with those peppers because I was so upset with them. So Singapore hot chili sauce, this comes from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. But first, before we do chili sauce, we're going to do a big ferment so that we have fermented hot sauce. Now this is so much easier than the Singapore hot chili sauce because these peppers can go in basically whole or cut in half. You technically could even leave the stems on if you wanted to, but I am going to cut the stems off, cut them in half and put them in the jar. I'm going to get the jar nice and full. I'm going to add garlic. I'm thinking about adding ginger. I've never done that before, but I have it out for this recipe, so why not? And then the ratio is, I do 1 tablespoon of salt per 3 cups of water. A lot of people do a different ratio, so you just gotta figure it out. Some people weigh it, but that's what I do. And I try to get the brine in the water. I heat up the water, then I put the salt in, I let the whole thing cool, and then I do that. So I'll make the brine later. I just wanted to talk you through that because I probably won't have that on video. But that's how you start the hot sauce. And then there's a process of finishing the hot sauce. That will be another video. But when it comes to this, you're gonna then put a weight on it or a spring and put a fermentation lid. If you don't have one, you can use a regular lid, but you're gonna have to release the air every day, and that's a lot to think about. So fermentation lids are a great investment because then you can just forget it, put it in the corner and forget it. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do today. I also have some fried rice cooking for breakfast. I need to finish that because I haven't eaten and I'm hungry. Yeah, it's one of those days. It's one of those days. I gotta focus and just get to it. Okay, so I'll just give you a quick rundown on these peppers. So I'm gonna be very, very careful. I don't even want to breathe them in. And so I'm just cutting the stem off. And then I'm gonna slice them down the middle and put them right in the fermentation jar. And that's it. I'm not doing anything more than that. And I wanna make sure I keep everything. These bigger ones, these are some big old jalapenos. I'm just gonna check them inside, make sure they're okay. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just throw that in. So even just like talking and breathing in these peppers right now is pretty intense. You really don't wanna mess around with this. Like you don't want to do what I did and not wear gloves. You want to wear gloves for the entire process, and that includes cleaning the knife and the cutting board. You're gonna wear gloves to wash everything. You don't take these gloves off. If you need to wash your gloves, wash them with your hands in them, or have another pair sitting nearby. Like these are not leaving my body this entire pepper cutting time. So I'm just gonna get this jar filled, and I'm doing like a different, like, I'm trying to use different peppers. Can you see the bowl? Why not? I'm trying to use different peppers so that it has a nice, like, range. Now, if you are really specifically wanting your hot sauce to be either red or green, you obviously can't use a combination, because when you use red and green together, you basically get like a brownish hot sauce. And so if that's important to you, if the look of it is important to you, which is a totally valid thing, if it is, then it is. So I like to use, I'm just gonna show you a quick aside. I like to use a lot of these in the Singapore hot chili sauce. I'm not exactly sure what variety it is, like some sort of like cayenne pepper maybe. But I like to put those in the hot chili sauce for sure. So anyway, you know, this is just like total preference. And because I do an assortment of peppers, I would say the majority in my hot sauce is the jalapeno. There's some habanero going in here, and it just makes, you know, when it all comes together and the flavors of the garlic, and then when you are actually making it, so after you fermented this, what's going to happen is you're going to take the brine out, save it on the side, put the peppers in a blender, and you're going to add a little bit of vinegar and some honey. Some people add cilantro or cumin. You're gonna have your garlic in there, your ginger if you used it, and usually you don't have to add any brine, but if you do, to thin it out, then you go ahead and do that. But the honey and the vinegar, it all just kind of comes together and it makes this amazing hot sauce. So that's it for this. This was really easy because I didn't have to chop these tiny. So this is just gonna have some ginger and garlic added to it when I get to that step for the hot chili sauce. So what I'm gonna do right now is combine these bowls. I'm gonna have this bowl. This bowl is gonna have my chopped peppers in it, and then I'll have this bowl for the stems. For the Singapore hot chili sauce, it is 4 cups. All right, I guess we'll measure later. So this is online, so I'll put the link. But it's 4 cups of red hot chili peppers, chopped, 2.5 cups of sugar, 2.5 cups of white vinegar, 1.5 cups of sultana raisins rinsed. I chop mine really fine. And I don't know, I just buy organic raisins, so. 1/4 cup of chopped garlic, 1 tablespoon of grated ginger root, and 2 teaspoons of salt. That's the entire recipe. And I am hoping that I can at least double this. It says it makes about 12 4-ounce jars or 6 8-ounce jars. So I am very, very much hoping to double this. This and the ferment are our main hot sauces, and we put Singapore chili sauce on everything. Like the fried rice I'm making, Singapore chili sauce. Like you can just put this on anything, and it is the most delicious. I have my vinegar out here. I'm using coconut sugar instead of white sugar, and that just means that my final product is a very dark product. I have my raisins, as I mentioned, some homegrown garlic, some ginger from the store. So I'm just going to start chopping. So we'll do one together. I'm not gonna make you watch my entire chop session, but basically here's a jalapeno, and I'm gonna take it down in half, and then I'm gonna cut each section into about thirds, and then I can go ahead and just finely chop that pepper. So it does take a while. It's a little bit tedious because you do need tiny little bites. You're making a chili sauce, so you don't want huge chunks. And then I'm just gonna throw that in here. Now I'll say this is very spicy. However, if the longer it sits, so we have, the hot chili sauce is about 1 year old, the longer that it sits, the more it mellows out. And the vinegar and the sugar certainly help to mellow out some of the heat, but I find it's really time. Like my ferment hot sauce, when I first ferment it and get it into the bottles, it is like serious business. But then as time goes on, so we have one that's over a year old right now, and as time goes on, it just like, I mean, it mellows out, and it is just absolutely delicious. So you could think about too, like, you know, always making a little bit extra so that you have time to use the old stuff while the new stuff is aging, I guess, you could say. I'm even scared it's like gonna go through the gloves. Like, that's how scared I am now. I probably should have like doubled up my glove. I know that may be irrational, but when you have had your hands stung by hot peppers, I think I'm gonna put on my audiobook and just chop and see where this gets us. So you can see I did change gloves. I was so worried those blue gloves were just gonna rip and it was all gonna be bad. So I can tell you my temperature has gone up like 10 degrees just from cutting these peppers and breathing them in. It is wild. So here are my 8 cups for the Singapore chili sauce, and that's just gonna go right into my pot. And then this was what was left. So I took the stems off and just gave them a rough chop, and this will easily make another batch of fermented hot sauce. So that's really great news. So now we're looking at half a cup of chopped garlic. I have no idea how much that's gonna be. I am keeping my gloves on, so it's gonna make it a little difficult to work, but I just don't trust that anything I'm using right now wouldn't continue to burn my hands. I could switch everything out, the cutting boards and the knives. Maybe that's actually a smart idea, because then I could take my gloves off, but I'm still like nervous, like having this pot of peppers. I don't know, you just can't be too careful. So yeah, I'm gonna keep them on. Nice big cloves of garlic. It's almost garlic planting time, which kind of blows my mind. So I have heard that chicken don't register spicy stuff. So you can give the ends of the peppers, spicy peppers, to chicken, and they'll enjoy the seeds, and they'll just, you know, love the whole thing, and they don't actually register spice. I'm assuming that's true. I hate to hear something like from one source and then say, oh, this is absolutely true. So, you know, I haven't researched that further. It was just something that I heard. Oh, we might be very close here. Oh my, all right. That's exciting. I really didn't want to do more, and I don't have to. Have a cup of garlic. Great. Da 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 da. Cup chopped garlic going in. Tablespoon of grated ginger. I'm not gonna peel it. I'm just gonna grate it, and so I'll need 2 tablespoons, and I'm probably gonna eyeball this unless I know exactly where my tablespoon is at this moment. So here's what I know. Next time I do this recipe, I am going to prepare all these other things first and get them in little bowls all ready to go, so that I'm not doing this step in fear. In fear. I really don't. I didn't think that through, and now it just occurred to me, and it seems like the simplest thought in the world, and you are probably yelling at me like, why didn't you do all this before the hot peppers? I heard you. I heard you yelling at me, I promise. I heard you. And then the last thing I need to chop is the raisins. So it's gonna be 3 cups. We'll see how much this ends up being. This is probably gonna be 2 cups. I could have just read the outside of the jar, of the package, which I did not do. All right, so this is 2 cups of raisins. I'm gonna get these chopped, and then maybe I will just add the other raisins later, once everything's cleaned up and washed, and you don't really need to hear all that, but okay, I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna do that. Raisins are not the easiest thing to chop. I just kind of take my time Be very patient with it and just keep like moving them around. Eventually they do work down. Oh boy, this is gonna be a lot of sugar. This is gonna be 5 cups of sugar. 3, 4, 5. Everything feels like a huge mess, but we gotta add the vinegar before we can get it on the stove. I'm literally sweating. 5, ready? 1, 4, 5. I'm gonna quadruple this recipe next time I do it, so I don't have to make this for like 3 years. I am so happy to be at the end of this. This is going on the stove. We, let's see. Oh, okay, I'll come back and show you later after I can breathe again. Okay, bye. Know this, but when this starts boiling, you are not putting your face over this. You've got vinegar and hot pepper that will just knock you over. So we're just gonna stand back and mix it from afar. And so this has been up to a boil for about 5 minutes. I've turned down the heat and I'm just gonna let this just cook for a while. Just simmer it gently on the stove, and then I'll can it in a little while when I have more energy after I've recovered from my pepper shock. Just looks like, you know, half-cooked peppers floating in vinegar sugar water. But what happens is after you can it, it goes through another cooking process. And then it's not something you want to eat right away. This is something that you're going to let sit. And over time, what happens is it becomes like this sticky syrup and everything starts to look the same. Like you won't see quite so many different shapes and colors. It kind of becomes more uniform. And because I'm using green peppers as well and dark sugar, it does become a lot darker than if you were just using a white granulated sugar and the red peppers, which I might try sometime just for fun, just to see how it looks. But I prefer coconut sugar, and it's, you know, unless you're really purposefully only growing one kind of pepper or one color pepper, you are going to have multiple peppers. So that's the story on Singapore chili sauce. A gallon jar, I just moved the other hot peppers into here and put a ton of ginger. I put a ton of ginger and garlic on the top, and I will cover that in a brine in a little while, but it's fine to just sit here right now for a few minutes until I get that done. And then I will put a weight on top, and I will you see, the thing with deciding to do this means that I don't have a fermentation lid for this, so I will have to burp this jar, but I don't mind. It just makes it easier to have it in one jar. So, and I'll tell you what, it's because peppers are fast, like 3 to 5 days. This stuff will be fermented unless it gets really cold. But yeah, peppers are fast. I ended up with 12 half pints in these 2 cute little sizes of Singapore hot chili sauce. I'm very happy with that. I do think going forward, because it is a pretty intense chopping hot pepper process, I would probably try to at least triple it. I think the first time I made it, I tripled it. If not quadruple it, which would mean that I wouldn't have to make it every year. And that's kind of my goal with canning, is to not necessarily have to make everything every year. I made pickles 3-4 years ago that we're still eating off of. The bread and butter ones are the only ones that are still good. The dill ones don't last that long, but the relish does. We had a bumper crop of cucumbers, so we just canned our little hearts out. And I know a lot of people don't believe in eating their canned foods past 18 months, 2 years. I do. So that's just me. That's my preference. That's how we've done it. I believe that it's safe, but you got to do you and not listen to me. You do you. So like last year I canned all our spaghetti sauce. I didn't have to do it this year. Salsa we have to do every year because we are big salsa eaters. Dave can eat an entire pint of salsa in one sitting, so we need salsa. What else have I, the apples, I didn't pick apples for a couple years. After getting enough applesauce and apple pie filling and apples in the freezer, I just like, you know, went crazy with that. And then we ate off of that for a couple years, and now we need to do apples again. So that's just kind of how I like to do things. I don't want to have to can these things every single year because then it opens up room to do other things. So you just got to kind of figure out like, you know, what you're going to do and make your plans. Making barbecue sauce for a couple years is a great idea. Anyway, that's the end of the Singapore hot chili sauce video. I will say goodbye. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. I hope you make it because it is delicious. And now I am about to film the next video, so I'll see you for that one.